Greetings from Germany. This is Ike speaking for the sake of the Son of Man to those who have ears to hear and eyes to see. Today we are going to continue with the book of Genesis, which reveals many important truths about our Creator, His antagonist, ourselves, and the world we live in. So, in the next verses we read how God now starts to create more and more order in the earthly realm. In the last video we have learned that God is a God of order and not of chaos. Otherwise he would not have spent so much time to order things the way he considers them to be good. Moses now tells us what God created on every day of the 7-day act of creation. Notice how God always judges what he has created and calls it good every time. Now regarding the 7 days, it does not matter if you believe it was all created literally in 7 days. Remember also that for the Lord 1 day is like 1,000 years. We find that in 2 Peter 3 verse 8. That would mean that God's creation actually took 7,000 years, measured in our time. That's not too unrealistic, right? But even if it was only 7 actual days, and you believe it should be taken literally, whether you take it literally or not is irrelevant. What is relevant, however, is the symbolic meaning the numbers have in regards to what has been created on that specific day, because those relations are actually manifesting themselves in our reality. The two important days are obviously the 6th and the 7th day. The 7th day being the moment of completion, where the creation is perfectly ordered and there's nothing to be done anymore. And it's also being the rest day of our Creator, where he looks at his work and considers it to be good and finished. This is where we get one of the 10 commandments from, which is, "You shall keep the 7th day holy," making it a rest day, a day of appreciation, a day of reflection. The 6th day, on the other hand, signifies the moment in which God created man in his image. This is where we get the number 666 from. 6 being the number of man, and 3 being a very important number as well. Everything that comes in threes is considered to be perfect. Every set of 3 is considered to be complete. Think of the Holy Trinity. Think of the 3 dimensions, depth, width and height, or time, space and matter. There are many more examples. So when we want to express the belief that man is perfect and complete the way he is, we could express that symbolically by the number 666. We know that it is therefore Satan's number and Adam's number. Adam being created as the first human being on the 6th day of God's creation. Satan being the one who tells man that through knowledge he will become like God. Therein lies the lie. They can't. So whoever believes that man can be or already is perfect worships Satan, if he knows it or not. You do not have to see yourself as a Satan worshipper to be one. All you need to do is to believe that man is perfect the way he is, or that man himself is a God of his own, or can become like God just by attaining some kind of mystery knowledge. If someone believes this, he is pledging allegiance to Satan, the serpent, the great deceiver, the Antichrist, whether he knows it or not. You don't have to wear black robes, go out by night and do some stupid rituals, burn Bible pages or whatever other nonsense to be worshipping Satan. But I'm already getting ahead of myself here. We are going to deal with the great deceiver later. So back to the 7 days of creation. The Bible tells us that God made the first human being from the dust of the earth. Somebody says, "Ha! That's hilarious." Well, let me tell you something. Have you ever thought about the fact that soil primarily consists of carbon and water? What does a human body primarily consist of? Carbon and water. So our bodies are made up of the same stuff that the earth is made of. See? The Bible is no fairy tale. It also already said millennia ago that humans cannot get older than 120 years. That is exactly what science found out recently, when they discovered the Hayflick limit. It's all in the Bible, you see. But back to the creation of man. We read in the book of Genesis that God created a single human being on the 6th day, as I've said, which the Bible calls Adam, because the Old Testament was written in Hebrew and Adam means human being in Hebrew. Then God took a rib from Adam and made a woman from it, whom the Bible calls Eve. Eve means to give life, which makes perfect sense since she would, being the first woman, become the mother of all people on earth. The thing with the rib seems hilarious again to many people. Of course, it has nothing to do with our scientific understanding of reality. I agree. But don't be a nitpicker and get hung up on non-essentials. The Bible is full of truth, and if you shut your ears and eyes to it because of a woman that was formed from a man's rib, then you're going to miss out on the essential truths which determine life and death. Anyway, let me tell you something about the genetic code of human beings. Men have XY chromosomes. Women have XX chromosomes. The chromosomes are actually what makes a man and a woman a woman. Now you tell me if you can make a man out of a woman, considering the fact that women do not have the Y chromosome that you need in order to make a man. But since a woman has only the X chromosome and the man has that chromosome as well, a woman could certainly originate from a man, just as we read in Genesis. God created Eve from Adam. And Moses did not have any scientific papers telling him about chromosomes back then. Believe me, there's your food for thought. The Bible is no fairy tale. Alright. Then we read that God said to the first human beings he had just created, "Look, I have given you every seed-bearing plant throughout the earth and all the fruit trees for your food." That's Genesis chapter 1 verse 29. So, no meat if you can. That's important. Don't tell me, "Yeah, but after the great flood?" Yeah, I know. And what about do not call something unclean if God has made it clean? Yeah, I know. Listen closely. I do not call it unclean. You can eat meat, and it won't be an abomination to the Lord. But you can also sin theoretically, and your sin is covered by the redemptive work of Christ. Does that mean that God is pleased when you sin? Is that what he truly wants? No, of course not. Likewise, what we read in Genesis chapter 1 is God's true will. This is what he originally intended us to consume. This is what pleases him most, and is best for us and fulfills his true will. You can eat meat, since he allowed it after the flood. All I'm saying is, if you want to please God in as many ways as possible, and really care about what he had in mind for you before the great fall and the flood happened, which you should, then try to eat less meat. Or, if possible, none at all. You can get along with nuts, soy products, even dairy if you need to, in order to get your proteins. I know soy is problematic, but hey, it's a plant. It's not meat. Remember the famous saying, "You are what you eat." So, eat flesh and you will become flesh. What does the Bible teach us about flesh? Those who are in the flesh cannot please God. Romans 8 verse 8. For those who live according to the flesh set their minds on the things of the flesh. But those who live according to the Spirit set their minds on the things of the Spirit. Romans 8 verse 5. For the desires of the flesh are against the Spirit, and the desires of the Spirit are against the flesh. For these are opposed to each other, to keep you from doing the things you want to do. Galatians 5 verse 17. For if you live according to the flesh, you will die. But if by the Spirit you put to death those deeds of the body, you will live. Romans 8 verse 13. Although there is no sin in the flesh of an animal, eating any kind of flesh still has a spiritual component to it. Don't think you are Christ. He could handle these things, and they would not impact his Holy Spirit. He could also go into the wilderness for 40 days and 40 nights and get tempted at the end, and still resist all temptation. But man is weak and susceptible to evil. Consuming more flesh also increases the likelihood of becoming ill. So it cannot be what God intended us to eat, or else it would not have such a negative impact on our health. Just as smoking, for example, wasn't God's intention either, and therefore causes health problems. They have done a large study a few years back at the National Cancer Institute of Maryland, where they found that people who ate the most red meat were 26% more likely to die of 9 diseases than those who consumed the least. Now, of course, there are many other things we do which are not in accordance to how God intended us to live. So nobody is perfect. I just wanted to point out that I believe and have personally experienced that eating less meat or abstaining from it completely is actually good for your spirit. Because a plant-based diet is the way God wanted us to eat in the first place. But back to the creation of Adam. There are 2 other important truths we learn from that passage. If we take a look at Genesis 1 verse 26, we find that God said, "Let us make human beings in our image, to be like us. Now wait a second. Did you notice that God speaks of himself in the plural form? He said, let us, and in our image. We have read in Genesis 1 verse 1 that God's Spirit was hovering over the surface of the waters. So isn't God just a single spiritual being? So how come that he is now talking as if he was multiple beings? Well, because he is in a way. Here in the very first chapter of the whole Bible, you already have your hint to the Holy Trinity. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Just by this verse alone, you could never figure that out. That is precisely why I said in my earlier video that you need to look at everything in the Bible in context with the rest of the whole book, the whole Bible. Whenever verses are completely taken out of the context of the whole book, that is both the Old and the New Testament, people start to distort the biblical truths. And that is when people actually get deceived easily. So there's your divine trinity. And since we already looked at the number 666 in the beginning as being Satan's number, now we can see how that is not only because of sets in 3 symbolize perfection or completion, but also because Satan is the antagonist to God, and therefore invertedly mirrors God's 3-in-1 essence. So Satan is 3-in-1 as well. That is Satan the Father, Satan the Son, who is the Antichrist or the son of perdition as we read in the New Testament, and Satan the unholy spirit or the Antichrist spirit of which we read in 1 John 4 verse 3. So the unholy trinity is symbolized by the number 666. And then therefore the Holy Trinity is symbolized by the number 777. That is why Christians oftentimes choose the number 777, for example on license plates. But as we all know, you cannot put God into numbers, really. It is more a way of communicating to the rest of the world, I believe in the God of the Bible. While those who like to show the number 666 in form of tattoos on the skin, printed on shirts or on album covers, on their license plates or whatnot, obviously want everybody to know that they pledge allegiance to Satan. Now think about why Steve Wozniak sold the first Apple computer for $666.66. Must be a coincidence. Especially in combination with the bitten apple. Or just look at barcodes, for example. Contact tracing bill, cryptocurrency patent. Well, it's everywhere. Unfortunately, Satan's fingerprint is omnipresent. This world is still his kingdom right now, because God let darkness exist right in the beginning of creation, as I have told you in the previous video. But let me tell you one thing. Satan's time is getting short now. There is another kingdom to come, and it is on its way. Okay, enough of that. We'll quickly take a look at the next passage of the book of Genesis, which I'll cover in more detail in the upcoming video. Now this is Genesis chapter 2, verses 8 and 9. Here we read about the Garden of Eden and how there were 2 trees in the middle of the garden. One tree is the tree of life and the other tree is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Interesting. Remember how we talked about duality and how God created our world dualistically? There is a reason why there are 2 trees in the middle of the garden. Duality. This duality thing is everywhere. Believe me. That is why I told you that you must understand why it is that way, where it came from and how it has been impacting our reality since day one. God knows exactly what he is doing, and so he put these 2 trees there for a reason. It is not even by accident that these are trees and not, let's say, 2 treasuries. Why 2 trees? And why the whole duality thing again? Well, I'm going to unravel the mystery, if you will, in the next video. And then we will get to Satan. I hope to see you back. Be blessed.